Hey, innovators, are you finished baking and looking for other ideas to entertain yourself? Well, I've got the perfect guest for you today. I get to chat with Julie Shum, who's been a friend for over 2 decades, and she always provides me with the perfect boost of inspiration. In fact, Julie and I have known each other for so long. She actually was with me when I started the whole Can Innovate podcast. And honestly, I am so grateful for having such a down-to-earth, inspirational friend that always supports me. And, you're going to really love this episode. You're going to discover how Julie's injury led to finding a new hobby that she's completely obsessed about, how we should tap into our inner child, discover other avenues, the I wonder, and the value of not overthinking something and just going with the flow, tapping into our creativity through resourcefulness. And Julie provides ideas from gardening, handwriting, to donating hair, and so on. There's no shortage of things that we can definitely get inspired from her. Julie has such a wonderful outlook in life and always finds the perfect opportunities at every twist and turn. So honestly, get ready to be inspired. So as promised, when you get into the episode, I promised I was going to make sure that you can follow how you can find Julie itself. So you can always find her on Instagram at Love Me Lettering or Creative Assemblies on Instagram. And plus, if you add the hashtag grateful mindset, tell us what you're grateful for. There's no shortage of amazing things that we've actually rediscovered from all of this. And hopefully you also got a chance to see that I have a free downloadable gratitude journal PDF, which is totally free for you to utilize and remember all these moments, because when we come out of all the situation, we may forget what we were actually really grateful for. And we don't want to do that, because I wonder what the world is going to write about us in 2030. And I think you're going to definitely want to make sure you tell this to your friends and grandkids and kids and stuff like that, to remind them of all the different things. So definitely download it. It's all in the show notes. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast. We focus on providing you with timeless professional development secrets and essential business life skills in a mini bite-sized format. I'm unlocking the vault and sharing best practices that management consultants have been using for decades. We're unapologetically curious. Enjoy. I got Julie Shum in the house, which I'm pretty friggin' excited about, because there's nothing shorty. There's no the word boring never comes to mind when I think of you, Julie. Like, never, ever, ever, ever. You've always been like exploring different things, doing different things. Like, it's amazing to me. Like, so. Anyways, so life, we were just chatting before we started recording about life with the COVID situation and how we're adjusting with our family lives. And then we're like, oh, jeepers, we should probably hit record. So now we're recording. So we're just talking about, adjustments we're making and how we're dealing with it. Because I think we're now, week 11, week 10?
Yeah, at least, yeah. It's been a while. I've lost count. It's like at least 2 months, if not just over. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and it's funny because, I'm watching the life cycle of the whole thing. Like, everyone's like, oh my gosh. And then, I'm enjoying my family life or whatever it is. And everyone started cooking and baking. And then there was like flour shortage and yeast shortage everywhere. And now we're kind of like in this other thing, into this other place where I think people are now starting to do more delivery food and takeout and stuff like that because they're tired of their own cooking. Like, one thing I've actually really missed is other people's cooking, like, that flavor, because I'm getting bored of my own recipes, and I'm always looking for inspiration, because I'm like, what are you making? Like, what are you eating? Because I'm asking people all the time, because you get, tired of your roster, right? Like, especially if you've been cooking, like, now, 3 meals a day automatically, right? Like, there's that no change up. So that kind of brought me into that whole thing about, how do we kind of keep refreshing ourselves so we don't get stale dated in the situation of a lockdown. And, and that's where I kind of went to you for inspiration, because Julie, you are no boring person. You're always up to I won't say no good, but you're always up to something.
Well, thanks, Sapna. Well, thanks for having this chat. It's always fun to talk to you. And, our banter, our back and forth is creativity on its own. So yeah. It's fun to be on the podcast again. And as you said, there's not just the being at home and locked down, we want to be here to talk about creativity, about being at home. And it can be, and I wanted to address this actually because we're recording in May. I don't know, maybe by the time you launch this, it may be a little later, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mm. And I think it's so important for us to address that. And, for those of us, we have our ups and downs and everything else. And, this is a big stressor on a lot of people. Like me personally, I have a lot of anxiety even just going grocery shopping these days. And, the people have mentioned, the enjoyment of, just casually walking up and down the aisles. And as you said, searching for ingredients for their recipes and discovering something new is not available to us in a time like this. So when we have to plan, when we have to make our grocery list, we can do that ahead of time by sharing online and having these talks with our friends and, even meeting new people while we're at home through virtual means.
It's crazy. You're right about that. That anxiety with grocery shopping is so true. And now that people are doing a lot more grocery pickups where they, to minimize that actual interaction, because I've been to a lot of grocery stores and honestly, that whole thing about social distancing does not exist. And, you see those commercials where people, have those things with the funny hats and then they have poles everywhere to keep people away. I actually laugh and I'm like, you know what? I can actually use that, because people really don't actually do that. So I think that's even driven more of the growth towards the, the grocery pickup, which is crazy because my dad does it now, which, I never thought that would ever happen because he loves looking at stuff. But it's taken away our ability to be a bit more creative with stuff because you can't browse, right? When you're walking down the aisle, like now you've got a list, you're sticking to the list and putting it in there and hoping that you're going to get those groceries. It's a little bit, it's taken away a little bit of that kind of freedom and flexibility of being creative from that perspective.
Yeah. And what I'm finding too is sometimes, and this always happens to me, is you get home, you've made a grocery list, but you come home and you forget that one item. Right? And then you think, oh, okay, great. Well, it's not like I can knock on my neighbor's door and say, can I borrow some sugar? Right? So that's when you really have to tap into your creativity. You got to think about, what can I make out of the ingredients I have? So that's happened to me in the past. That's happening now. You think of a certain ingredient. I'll take buttermilk, for example. That's something like a little bit out there. It's not something you buy every day, but if you forget, guess what? You can actually make buttermilk at home if you got milk and vinegar, etc. So those are the places we want to encourage and explore, I think, at this time.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because I love spicy food. Like I love anything with spice. So, and I'm even laugh because my chili peppers, I forgot to buy them. And I'm like, these really great green Thai chili peppers. So I was like, I was about to throw some of them out because they've starting to go bad. And I'm like, I wonder if I took seeds, and I feel like I'm tapping into my 5-year-old self, when they had science class, teaching you about seeds. I wonder if these seeds, if I plant them, would they grow and so on. So that's my new experiment. So I think I might actually start to go into gardening. And I never thought I'd have that personality. I know it's a far fetch, but it feels like, this exploring with, can I grow this? And then coriander. That coriander is really expensive. Too, I always seem to, when you go grocery pickup, they forget to put it in there or they run out or whatever it is. And I'm like, no, it's so essential to me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to grow it myself.
But isn't that amazing? These are the things that we wouldn't have thought of doing when we're in what you call a normal life. We're hustling constantly. We're always out and we're always trying to talk about self-care, right? Your work-life balance, all those things. And what was the definition of work-life balance before? It was make sure you work your 9 to 5 so that you have time for your friends and family. But it's all mixed together. It's all intertwined now because, you and I could be on conference calls. We both hope to have kids, but kids could be running around in the background. Things could be happening. Family could be popping in to do like contactless drop off as I do. And there's no longer that boundary, let's say, during your daytime. That forces you to rearrange your routine and to discover other things. Like you said, you're gardening. Like how do you adapt to this new life? And it's and I think this is going to last a while. So I think it's important for us to be, as your podcast alludes to, innovative with the way that we go about things now.
So how do we do that? So some people just don't have, and this is why I always go to you, Julie, for inspiration, because I find you fascinating. So for our listeners out there, Julie has discovered a lifelong passion now of calligraphy to go with her yoga and everything else that she does. But calligraphy is something I would not have ever thought of. And it kind of got me thinking a little bit more. And this is where I thought we could kind of brainstorm and I could tap into your brain a little bit. Like, how did you kind of come up with some things that you would like to learn or explore? Like, how did that even come about?
So calligraphy itself, and I'll take you back a little bit further, only because, again, as I mentioned earlier in our chat, is that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And really calligraphy came to me as something to explore because I needed that mental expression, let's say, of being able to come away from that day-to-day. And I was at a time, this was a couple of years ago, at a time where I was pushing a lot of the work boundaries and ironically was working at a company doing computer coding workshops. So constantly on devices, constantly in groups, socializing, everything where I didn't have that time for myself. And when I do choose to do things to myself, I'm quite active. I'm very athletic. You know, I'm adventure traveler.
Yes, you are.
Love just getting out there. And unfortunately, at this time, you can't. But at that time, exercise was my outlet. And unfortunately, I met with the streetcar tracks in downtown Toronto. And they weren't friendly to me. And I actually hurt my shoulder. So I was, I didn't have the ability to play sports for quite some time. And so I had to try and find a different place to balance my work life with. And that was something where I had to kind of search back to all the many things that I've tried in my life. And I rediscovered handwriting. Something to take me completely off the screen, off my device, and something that's quite meaningful to all of us, I think, because we just don't write letters to each other anymore. We don't handwrite our notes at work very often. It's just something, again, that I needed to take myself off of the screen, a break from there, and also somewhere to express my emotions because of what I was going through. I no longer had a sporting outlet. Fitness, athletics was not a choice for me. I also was going through a very difficult breakup. And work was heavy. So, you're looking for somewhere where, again, that's self-care, so important. Release of that creativity somewhere as well. So, good thing that you and I hadn't seen each other in a long time. We found an activity to do. So actually, Sapna and I had attended a calligraphy class together, and almost the rest is history. I kind of became very obsessed with it because it was truly an outlet that could continue no matter what aspect of my life I was engaged in.
Now, for our listeners out there, she really did drag me to this calligraphy thing. And honestly, it was really enjoyable and therapeutic. And it was something I actually got to turn my brain off. But Julie, you've turned this obsession into an actual kind of side business as well. Like, it's kind of really grown into something else. Like, it's amazing that it came from trying to find something for mental health, kind of balancing things, so, tap into something that's, your creative juices, and then it's become something else of its own life.
It's true, Sapna. You couldn't believe how it rolled into something completely new. I didn't expect it. I was looking for something personal, but then it became something that I wanted to share with everyone in the world. Everyone I could talk to, I was telling about calligraphy, and I still am. Any chance I get to share my work on Instagram, for instance. And I also built a group out of it, a meetup group, and that's called Creatives Assembly. And I learned a lot of this dynamic from, working with the computer coding workshops. There's just some magic about bringing people together again in person. And hopefully we'll get to do this after, the restrictions lift of our lockdown. But there's something about coming together and meeting over something common and allowing others, especially that have never discovered this art of calligraphy, or no matter what hobby it is, to come and join in on learning something new, finding, again, another outlet, and you can't imagine what you learn about yourself when you learn something new. It's not about the actual exercise and hobby itself. It's the meeting of other people and the personalities and the walks of life that you come across. That's what I truly, at the end of the day, is the reason. It's meeting those people and discovering what is it about calligraphy that they like. It's just a simple little thing about writing on not even just paper. You can take calligraphy everywhere and on different surfaces of all sorts. But it's just, again, that community and finding somewhere where you belong, somewhere that you could expand that community as well and meeting new people.
So for our listeners out there, don't worry. If you're curious about all this creative calligraphy, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes so you guys can tap into her Instagram. And her Instagram is actually really hilarious as well, because she actually writes some not so nice words too sometimes when her calligraphy or the day does not feel right. But it's hilarious. And it actually makes me smile every time I actually see it on my Instagram. But for our people out there, right? You kind of drew into the whole thing, but handwriting, where do people start? Like, now the baking has maybe kind of fizzled out a little bit, right? Everyone's kind of like, how does someone kind of now tap into other things to kind of get inspired by? Any tips?
Yeah, sure. Anything that inspires you, try it. Like your gardening, again, handwriting. Let's bring it back to writing notes to each other. I'm actually exploring how can I bring handwriting to a place where we can kind of start to send each other letters again, and all think about all these frontline workers, and not just those that are health workers, but those that keep our stores open, those that keep the roads, in good condition. They're still out there. They're still building our homes. How do we thank them? Why not write a letter? Why not write a sign? I know people have been doing signs on their lawn. You don't need a computer. You don't need anything special. You need just a piece of paper and a marker, a pen, pencil, whatever it might be. I know there's other calligraphers or letterers out there that have been drawing on their windows as well to show support and appreciation, and some hilarious sayings to just keep spirits up. So those are definitely ways that you can get started. And if you're too shy to share your work, too shy to say, a thank you in a letter to someone at this point, write a letter to yourself. Explore how your feelings have been happening throughout, the period that you've been at home. And that just takes a pen, a pencil, and a piece of paper again, just to kind of get that feeling of a pen or pencil to paper is nothing to compare with of being on a computer.
So you want to hear something really geeky about me? I actually write with a pencil. I know it's so weird because everyone else writes with pens and stuff. I write with pencils. I know. I don't know what it is. It's something about, maybe it's my accountant in my background or whatever it is, but I write because when I draw, then I can scratch it out and erase it or whatever. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's kind of
crazy. It's kind of fun where, you can make mistakes. A pencil, you got an eraser. Just go back and tidy it up. If not, if you're feeling crazy, don't even use the eraser. Just let it go.
So I was actually doing some research for this, about curiosity and more about, finding different things to, especially with kids, right? Like I watch my sister with the 4 kids trying to keep all those kids entertained and educated and whatever it is. And one of the things I was asking her is like, how do you kind of keep them motivated or, with a variety of activities? And you know what she told me? She tapped into her childhood. Of all the things that she used to wish about or think about or whatever it is. And she's been going through this huge memory lane of ideas. Like she remembered about, I can't remember what it's called, spiral graphy or something like that, where there were like these little things, stencils with the different colors and stuff like that.
Yeah, the spiral graph.
Right. So she was tapping into all this old school kind of things and that, trying to make sure that they could do those pieces of it. And it's kind of really fascinating. She bought a karaoke machine for the kids, which I think has now become her karaoke machine because, The kids are so not interested into it. But yeah, I think it comes back to allowing our minds to kind of not think about the rules, think about the what ifs, or I wonder if, or I wonder how this actually got created, and see if something kind of sparks something from there.
The best thing about being locked up at home is honestly no one else besides yourself or your family can see you. So what they've already seen you in, whatever situations before. So why not just try whatever it is that, might be new to you, that comes to you, and your family might even get inspired to join you.
Well, you never know. I mean, there are some things some things, even my parents, you don't think that they would be into this digital revolution or whatever it is. They've really have adopted to it, like all the technology around them, and spending time teaching them and onboarding them has actually been another bonding instance of someone being good at something else that they need to understand. And I think that we all kind of need to also kind of embrace that teacher side of us, that we do have something we can teach to the world, and I think that's pretty exciting too.
We do. And I think everybody's got something very valuable to share, as you said. And not a lot of us have that confidence to say that. We're taught, and I think this goes back to very much like being a female, we're taught to be very humble and kind of let someone else lead. But I think this is a time where we can really tap into that and not be shy in sharing, like even what you cooked for dinner. Right? And say, hey, I tried this out. Because that really is the spark of trying to inspire somebody else to try something new.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like hair, I was laughing about, not just hair color, but, jeepers, my hair, by the time this is all over, there's a good chance it might be down to my feet if I don't figure out something, how to cut. For those of you, I've done this myself, but for those of you who have never colored your hair and you have to let your hair grow, why not donate your hair at the end of this? This would be such an amazing opportunity to let that be something on your bucket list. Oh, what a great idea. See, this is why I really enjoy chatting with you. You actually can take something and then you look at hey, what if you could do this? What else could be used for? How can be resourceful? And I think that's the whole thing. Is I think we all are starting to learn to be less wasteful, more, grateful. Back to your point about work-life balance, if we didn't have something, we go to the grocery store. We don't have that. So I think we're tapping into how to be a lot more resourceful, which also opens up a bigger can of worms too, because that could actually go into multiple directions of something else that you might become curious and want to learn about.
And I think we need to take away the word of passion when we're kind of in this situation. I guess in many situations where we're really pushed to try and find a passion, but I don't think there is such thing. I got stuck in that rut. It's a very dangerous circle to be in your thought process. But it is really, that's a very good word you brought up, Sapna, is resourceful. That's a very practical way of looking at it, but it is creativity just expressed as another word.
I love that. And I'm with you. I hate the word passion because if you don't know what you're passionate about and you struggle with it, but you don't know half the tools to figure out what you're even kind of remotely inspired by it. It's like it takes away that. It makes you kind of forces you to have a solution and kind of shames you to not have a solution, as opposed to actually enjoying the journey to and then eventually finding what it looks like at the end.
For sure.
There's a bit of a gap.
Yeah.
So, Julie, what are you planning on learning in the next little while?
I can't say for sure I have anything planned, but you know what I really enjoyed, and it pushes my own creativity, is teaching my niece how to cook. She's 19. Hopefully she goes back to university, so she's living on her own, and she wants to learn these things so that she can be more independent. But that pushes me to be very resourceful, as you said, because we don't always have the tools at home. But I do have the knowledge, at least to get her started. And she pushes me too, because she'll start to ask me questions that maybe I never looked at in a certain perspective. So it's really been fun trying to teach her how to cook, and it's pushed my creativity for sure. And it's inspired her to continue to bake, which is getting me a little heavier. So.
Well, that's awesome. And plus you've got your garden that you're growing in the backyard. You were sending me pictures of that. So
yeah, so I've never done that. That was, again, the same type of situation as you're in with your peppers. It's like, I like this, I have the seeds available to me. Why not try it out? who cares if I make a mistake? I get dirty, like, when we were kids, as you talked about.
God, sometimes I really wish being a kid. I think that's a journey. I think I wish I had understood better of the value of being a kid. They always ask the question, why or how or how come? And they always have those questions. And you know what? I think it's time to come back to those things because you never know.
Sure.
Like, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where I get it from, because I know my inner child has a very loud voice. And that's what pushes me to keep trying. And
love it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? May is Mental Health Awareness. Let's all bring out our inner child and just kind of get resourceful and, experiment and see what happens. But you could do it with some friends virtually anyways. And we have more stories to tell.
Yeah, get out there and bring out your inner child.
Love it. Oh, thanks, Jules, so much. This has been amazing.
Thanks, Sapna. It was really fun talking to you.
Thank you so much for joining and listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, please share with your friends and colleagues. You can share on social media, the email link, the newsletter, and so on. Let's continue to support these Canadian innovators and help them really grow into bigger brands. Awareness and knowledge is totally key. Anyways, I can't wait to talk to you next week. Cheers.